to continue to get her done with you over the next 4 like we've done this last 4. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for always putting people first.
Yeah, in a nutshell, that is Governor Holcomb. If you know anything about him, that is quintessential Governor Holcomb with his style and the way that he talks. So that little clip where he's thanking his lieutenant governor is the way he thanked the state employees, his wife, his parents, not really talking about big policy things that are coming up other than saying that there is work to do to make this one Indiana. And as the governor has said previously, pretty much everything is on the table to be reviewed. That is, if the governor got that second term, and tonight he does have that. Reporting live tonight, I'm Cameron Riddle, WRTV.
Thank you, Cameron, for keeping an eye on that. And our team coverage continues with our Kara Kenny covering Indiana Democrats. Kara, a different story there.
That's right. The Democrats did everything virtually via Facebook Live and Zoom throughout the evening. Their spirits were high even as Dr. Woody Myers conceded the gubernatorial race to incumbent Governor Eric Holcomb. I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Dr. Woody Myers thanked his supporters and his family. He called it a long shot and an uphill battle. Dr. Woody Myers is a former Indiana State Health Commissioner who was largely critical of Holcomb's response to COVID-19. He said the governor has not done enough to stop the spread of COVID-19 and has failed to listen to the concerns of citizens. Myers says the pandemic intensified his desire to give Hoosiers an alternative to the status quo.
I announced my candidacy before we'd ever heard of COVID-19 and before we'd ever seen the murder of George Floyd, and both intensified my desire to offer an alternative to the status quo for all Hoosiers. There are many to thank: those on my team, those who supported our campaign, and those who tweeted, retweeted, called, texted, and carried our messages forward to all who would listen.
And we still have not heard from congressional candidate Christina Hale and Attorney General candidate Jonathan Weisapple. Hale's campaign is telling me tonight that they are still waiting on tens of thousands of absentee ballots to be counted tonight before deciding anything or announcing anything. We are live downtown. Kara Kenny, WRTV.
Kara, thank you. And while many of Indiana's races have been called, there are dedicated individuals across the state who are working hard to make sure all the votes get counted. WRTV's Cornelius Hawker is on the east side of Indianapolis at the Marion County Vote Center. Cornelius, you had a chance to talk to many people who are making sure all of these votes get counted and tabulated.
I did, Mark. And, I just want to point back here. These are the dedicated few who are still here. Some have been here since the morning, and they're going to be going until midnight to finish up tabulating votes. And I was just told just a few seconds ago by Russell Hollis, the Marion County Deputy Clerk, that they have tabulated around 100,000 votes. Now, we want to show you some video from earlier today. Hundreds of people have been in here since early this morning, going through thousands of ballots. The last I checked, like I said, around 100,000 of them have been tabulated, and that number will surely go up tomorrow whenever they continue counting. Now, I talked to some of the folks who are working, and they told me why they were working or what voting means to them.
I think it's really important to make sure that every vote gets counted.
My mother and father instilled in me at a young age the importance of voting. Too many people died, were arrested, and were hosed that I might vote. So that's why it is important for us to get out and vote.
Usually I would like to work at my polling place, but because of COVID, I didn't want to do that. And this way I'm only exposed to this one lovely, healthy, young graduate.
I think it's just important that people get out there and are involved in the political process and help and do what they can.
Now, again, tomorrow, hundreds of people will be here. Some of them are volunteers, some are getting paid, but all of them, as you just heard, want to help with this exercising your right to vote and making sure all the votes are counted. And again, if you can come back out to me, we just learned that around 100,000 absentee ballots have been counted, and tomorrow they're going to continue counting. So folks like Christina Hale, they're still holding out hope that ballots that are being counted will help push them over the edge. But again, tomorrow, hundreds of people are going to be here counting again, just like they are all across the state, dedicated to doing this despite these races already being called. For now, live on the east side, working for you, Cornelius Hawker, WRTV.
And while the clerk's office says it was mostly a smooth day for voters in Marion County, that was not the case everywhere. People in Madison County reported several problems. WRTV's Stephanie Wade joining us live now from Ingalls. And Stephanie, you spent much of the day in Madison County. What do you now know at this hour?
That's right, Mark. Well, it has not been smooth sailing for many Madison County voters this election day. The line here finally ended at Ingalls just about an hour ago after some people tell me they waited up to 5 hours to cast their ballot. Take a look at some of this video we shot here earlier, and this is really what we saw all across Madison County. People waiting for several hours. And the thing is, it's not just high voter turnout that caused these long lines, but problems with voting equipment instead. The Madison County clerk tells me they didn't have enough voting equipment to go around. They had to purchase 170 new machines last year and originally planned on using voting centers instead of traditional polling places for this year's election so people could vote outside their designated precinct. As it stands right now, people are only allowed to vote at one location based on where they live. But the plan was rejected last minute by county commissioners, forcing the county clerk to scramble. Take a listen.
We tried to order more equipment because we knew if we weren't getting vote centers, we were not going to have enough machines for the general election. They refused to pay for those also, so we couldn't get more equipment. And we talked with the state, and they said, you know, if you don't get either of those, either vote centers or more equipment, you're going to have some of the longest wait times in the state. And here we are today, and we're having to deal with it. And I'm so sorry to all of the voters that have had to deal with it because that's not fair to them. They didn't do anything to deserve these wait times. It should not have been this long.
And the county clerk also told me they ended up sending some paper ballots to some of those polling locations that were seeing such long lines. So some people might have ended up voting actually by paper ballot after waiting several hours in some of these lines here in Madison County. Reporting live tonight, Stephanie Wade, WRTV.
So Stephanie, you had a chance to speak with some of those voters who were waiting in those long lines. What did they tell you about their frustrations or their willingness to have their voices heard despite?
Yeah, people were very frustrated, as you can imagine, waiting up to 5 and some people saying 6 hours at some of these locations when they said in past presidential elections they would normally take about 10 minutes to cast their ballot here. So a lot of frustration. And actually, I want to point out, too, because people can only technically vote in their own precinct, I saw at least 2 people, one woman leaving in tears because she waited for up to 5 hours in this line only to be told inside that she was at the wrong precinct. Mark?
Heartbreaking. All right, Stephanie Wade live for us tonight. Thank you.
Well, now to a Central Indiana father and daughter who went to great lengths to make sure she voted in her first election.
And I had the plan to vote by mail, but there was some sort of issue. I have no idea what it was, but I never got my mail-in ballot.
That was a major problem for 19-year-old McKenna Brown because she's a college student in Iowa. But instead of accepting that she would not be able to get home to Marion County to vote, her dad made the drive to the Hawkeye State, around 12 hours there and back. David Brown says they hesitated a bit before deciding the long trip was worth it.
I mean, we went back and forth a little bit on it. It is a long way, but in the end, that's how important it is to us. And so we're also very fortunate. I mean, we count our blessings, and we know we were able to do it. And I mean, McKenna was talking about, she knows plenty of people at school that were further away or didn't have the resources. So we wanted to make it count for us.
And that's what we've been hearing from so many people throughout this whole election process this year, is how important it is to make sure their voices were heard.
Amazing that the father drove the 6 hours and drove the 6 hours back so that his daughter could have that first experience, and a very important one in an historic election.
A good dad there.
That's right. All right, let's get a first look at our forecast from Kevin.
And an amazing night as far as the weather's concerned all day long. We're still at 51. We'll talk about how our mild pattern continues, at least for how long.
And coming up, we'll check back in on the race for the White House from the Electoral College map and take a closer look at the battle for the Senate.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 11, streaming now.
Welcome back to the news at 11. We are keeping our eye on the race for the presidency. And Joe Biden has now taken a big leap ahead of President Donald Trump with 187 of the Electoral College votes over Donald Trump at 114, as some big states, including California's numbers, just came in as their polls just closed about 14 minutes ago. So we are continuing to follow that, and you can continue to follow that at WRTV.com.
Many outlets are waiting longer to call races tonight. Scripps political correspondent Joe St. George is in Washington with a closer look at why.
Why are the election results taking so long, you may be asking? Well, for one reason, every state is processing ballots differently. For instance, in North Carolina, the majority of ballots are already in. We're closer to a result because officials were able to process ballots days, weeks in advance. This is video from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a very different story there, where election officials only got to start counting today. One reason why results there will take a while. Philadelphia election officials are actually providing a live feed of them tabulating. We asked Judy Muller, a professor emeritus, former network correspondent, about how the networks in particular are being careful with calling states this election night.
I'm pretty impressed with the way everybody is dampening down expectations for an early call, explaining why this year is so different than other years, how the early calls might be misleading. And I think that that's not something that comes naturally to network news organizations. They want a story. They want to be first. There's a real rush to get the news out. And in this case, they're trying to make Americans comfortable with uncertainty and to be patient. And that is not an American virtue.
Remember, tip number one for following tonight: if Ohio, North Carolina, or Florida is called for Biden, it could spell trouble for Republicans. That's because President Trump desperately needs those states to win. Networks are particularly taking their time with those states. And as we overlook the United States Capitol building here in Washington, one congressional piece of information to pass along: Senator Mitch McConnell has won re-election in his state of Kentucky. He'll be returning to the Senate next year as Republican leader. We don't know yet whether Republicans will control that chamber or not. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
There's been some concern about unrest on election night. Scripps reporter Thomas Huppuff continues our team coverage from Washington, where the opposite is the case.
I'm Thomas Hoppo, just here about a block away from the White House, and this is something that's pretty cool. We stumbled across everybody out here having a watch party for the election results, and this is very cool because it's people from both sides of the election that are coming together to watch this, have discussions about both candidates and politics and views, and it's something that is making them feel pretty much more normal again.
So I'm just out here. I went on a walk. I heard a lot of ruckus going on over here, so I was like, oh, people are watching the polls. I might as well chill out here for a little bit.
And you know, with the situation with COVID, it's better to be like in an open space than being confined indoors.
Well, it's also just a very nice night, so why be cooped up in a restaurant when you can be out here on a big jumbotron watching the polls?
I pray that nothing bad happens. I don't think anything bad is going to happen tonight. I don't believe there's going to be any riots. But this is much better. It's more like a common feel, you know, people all together.
And just like they said, one of the great things about tonight here in DC is that mostly it's very peaceful. There's not a lot of commotion, nothing disruptive at all happening right now. So people are going to continue to stay here and watch the results. I'm Thomas Hoppo reporting.
Now to the forecast. A November warm-up continues this week. As you see here, WRTV Chief Meteorologist Kevin Gregory joining us now.
You can feel the warmth from those high temperatures today, Mark. Some spots nearly 70 degrees, and it is still a warm and dry night. That is the theme for the next 7 days. We'll keep above average temperatures, and we'll keep it dry probably until Tuesday. That'll be our next opportunity for some rain across central Indiana. Next 3 days, here's where we're headed. Lots of sunshine for your day tomorrow. It won't be too windy, but we will see some gusts to 20 miles per hour. Thursday, more clouds around, still dry. We back off on the temperature just a little bit. Then we're pushing the needle close to 70 once again on Friday. These overnight lows are warming up as well. It's not just the high temperatures. There's a 50-degree low temperature expected Thursday morning. Friday still comfortable. Early next week, we've got about 3 mornings in a row where temperatures will be in the 50s for low temperatures. Wind tomorrow out of the south-southwest. That will grab hold of warmer temperatures that have been sitting just to our west, pull that veil of warmth into central Indiana, and we'll enjoy another spectacular November day. It's not the fact that we're mild, or if you want to call it warm, for this time of the year. It's the length of time that will hold on to these above average temperatures, and even beyond the 7-day forecast, say through about the 16th or 17th of the month. Indications are we'll have above average temperatures. Tomorrow, another one of those days. 68 will be the high in the metro area. Many spots still could touch 70 degrees. Thursday morning, the gray represents cloud cover. This is at 8:30 in the morning. Through early afternoon, we hold on to clouds. These are mid to high level clouds, but enough that it tones down the sunshine just a little bit, and temperatures will be slightly cooler, but still well above average. There are your highs across central Indiana, and the wind again out of the southwest. Friday, tons of sun, temperature right at 69 degrees. This works out nicely. The warmest temperatures coincide with the weekend. 72 Saturday, lots of sunshine, warm, dry, temperatures in the low 70s on Sunday. Early next week, we're still dry Monday, still warm. As we get to Tuesday, our chance for rain returns, 68 for the high temperature, and we put it all together for you. There's your theme. 6 out of the next 7 days are dry. Temperatures each day are above average. We've got lots of sunshine in there until we get to early next week. The warmest mornings early next week, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, all into the middle to upper 50s for low temperatures. We'll be back.
Now to a couple of headlines away from the election. The COVID positivity rate in Indiana is now 16.2%. That's the 7-day rate among unique individuals. 2,951 new positive cases were reported between last Wednesday and yesterday. There are now 4,199 total COVID deaths in Indiana since the start of the pandemic. Purdue's big matchup against Wisconsin this weekend is canceled. This is Wisconsin's second straight canceled game due to a COVID outbreak on the team. Today, school officials announced that 3 additional players and 2 additional staffers have tested positive for the virus since Saturday. That brings the program's total number of active cases to 27. Canceled Big Ten football games will not be rescheduled. And the virus is surging across the country, not just in Indiana. ABC's Romina Puga has the latest on the pandemic nationwide.
An unprecedented election day in the midst of a deadly pandemic that continues surging throughout the country. Current COVID-19 numbers are among the highest since the pandemic began. Hospitalizations increasing in 46 states.
The rates of growth are alarming. They seem to be as bad or worse than they were back in the spring.
Coronavirus Task Force Coordinator Dr. Deborah Birx issuing a warning in a memo obtained by the Washington Post saying we are entering the most concerning and most deadly phase of this pandemic. For victims of the virus like Mariana Cisneros, recovery has been slow. Last year, the ICU nurse was competing in fitness competitions. Now, 3 months after being diagnosed with COVID-19, she can barely stand, unsure of when she'll be healthy enough to return to work.
I am not supposed to be in the 120s, 130s at resting at all.
Even I, at the beginning of this, was thinking, even if I caught COVID, I'll be fine. And, here I am months later and I am not fine. We don't know what the future holds for me. If this is permanent, if I'll even be able to go back to work as a nurse.
At least 232,529 Americans have died of COVID-19. The NIH director urging people to mask up, citing a recent study showing if 95% of Americans wear masks, nearly 130,000 lives could be saved by the end of February. A new study using plasma samples found that nearly 20% of New York City's population had been infected with COVID-19, representing approximately 1.7 million residents. Romina Puga, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Now back to the election, and while people across the country and state voted early in record numbers, some say there is still work to do when it comes to voting access. One of our WRTV political insiders predicts the power of the people will lead to progress in Indiana.
I think also, too, what likely has to happen is that there needs to be some grassroots support and some grassroots work that goes into making these changes. We have seen this year particularly just a reawakening and a reckoning about equality and fairness and parity, and that really speaks to the voting process. There are a lot of people who took the day off of work and didn't get paid whatever they make an hour to go stand in line. And a lot of them went and stood in line because they're afraid they're going to get COVID showing up on election day. So we've got to be really mindful of that. And I think we're going to see some change, but I think it's going to come from the grassroots level, because I really think that some of the folks in charge, not to sound like Donald Rainwater, but some of the folks in charge don't really want you to know how it all works. We'll put a public posting out, but oh geez, we may not want you to show up, and I think we're going to have a lot of people show up.